You are Locked On Wolves Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Free throws and turnovers. That sinks the Wolves tonight despite their best efforts in OKC, 113-105. That's your final. Wolves dropped to 10-8 now on the year. What's going on back in the lab? Back at it. Another T-Wolves Postcast right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network, which, thanks to you guys, now the #1 sports podcast network. That's Jack Borman, a Wolves expert, NBA expert. Give him a follow on X at Jared Borman13. Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. Of course, you got to follow our guy, Ben Beacon, host of the Locked On Timberwolves show as well. Remember to like and subscribe. Find all the video on the Locked On Wolves YouTube channel. Of course, all the audio wherever you find your podcast. Lots to get into, Jack. Biggest X factor tonight. Who was it? Plus, what do the Wolves want back the most right now? But first, just off the top, kind of set the stage. You know, a lot of people know this if you watch the game, but you know, OKC on this 9-game win streak, longest active streak in the NBA, haven't lost at home this year, beating teams by an average of 17 points per game, 22 points if you look at their 9-game win streak. So needless to say, kind of felt like just climbing Mount Everest almost. They're clearly just the best team in the league right now, absolute juggernaut. And on top of that, you got the NBA Cup ramifications in play as well. So it was sloppy. It was ugly to start things for the Wolves offensively. They shot close to 30% heading into halftime, on top of we'll get into it, slew of missed free throws, which, man, you look at the box score right now, probably the difference in the game right there alone. But make matters worse, turnovers, they couldn't get that under control, Jack. All a recipe for just disaster against a team like this. But they did hang in there. They chipped away in the third quarter, actually tied things up at one point in the third quarter. 3:41 left. This game's tied somehow. Take it from there. Final few minutes, and then obviously just your overall big picture reaction to kind of kick things off as well.
Yeah, of course. First of all, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Appreciate you joining us. I think, you know, again, it was a win and in situation for the Timberwolves in the NBA Cup quarterfinals. So it had a really fun atmosphere and feel to it. But again, I mean, it's just the third straight game that the Timberwolves lose because of the little things, right? And I think this one obviously has a little bit of a different tone than the other two. But free throws, right? The Wolves missed 15 free throws. They were 22 of 37. 59.5%. That's the fifth time in the last 7 games that they've shot 72% or worse from the free throw line. And for context, the league average is about 79%. And the worst team in the NBA this season, the Milwaukee Bucks, are shooting 71%. And then second worst is 74.5%. So Timberwolves have been really struggling from the free throw line of late. And that, you know, reared its head tonight, early on in the game, right? Ant missed 3 free throws early on. Julius missed 3 free throws early on. Rudy missed a bunch of free throws tonight and kind of swung the game there in the fourth quarter when he, you know, worked really hard to get 2 fouls in the offensive glass and then missed both free throws. And then Chet goes down and makes 2 on the other end, right? So, and then turnovers, obviously. The Timberwolves only had 1 turnover in the first quarter for 0 Oklahoma City points. The final 3 quarters, they turned it over 15 times. Those became 20 Thunder points. And so not only was it just the turnover just in general, it was kind of the nature and the context of them, right? Jaden McDaniels had another awful turnover in the backcourt that it should have been points the other way that instead becomes Oklahoma City points the other way. Then you had 2 turnovers around the 3-minute mark of the fourth quarter when the Wolves, you know, Finch draws up a beautiful ATO play to get Dante a wide open 3 and he knocks down the shot to tie the game. And then they have 2 turnovers on horrible entry passes right there. And then, you know, the last little thing too, like Jaden McDaniels picking up a technical, while I thought it was hilarious, just like a 10 out of 10, no notes, A+ random Jaden crash out, throwing the ball up in the air.
Landed in the first row,
you know,
according to Doris anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like that one point would have been nice to have in a game that went down to the wire. But again, you know, the Wolves hung in there really tough. I thought that, you know, the offense was awful in the first half. They had a 10-minute stretch from about the 6-minute mark of the first quarter to the 8-minute mark of the second quarter, where they only scored 6 points, but they stayed in the game because they fought their tails off on the defensive end of the floor. I mean, Chris Finch called his second challenge of the game in the first quarter, or maybe it was early in the second quarter, to prevent Rudy Gobert from having to sub out with his third foul. Because that's, I mean, that was Rudy kept them in the game was how, tremendous he was inside the arc defensively. Yeah. And then I just also want to point out a couple of things. Like, I think we're at the point now, like, where, Nas having no points and no rebounds in the first half in a game where they really, really need him, a team against a team that's going to give up corner threes with their boxes and elbows defense, for him to not really impact the game at all in a meaningful way is tough. I mean, it's not like Nas is on his bargain deal. I mean, he's making
right. Yeah. Good point.
$1 million. And I think they just need more from him in the first half. And he knows that. Came out and played better in the second half. And then the last note off the top for me, I generally try to give announcers some leeway, but I thought that Dave Pasch and Doris Burke, I thought that was the most nauseating
gushing
podcast to listen to since game 5, or was it game 7? Whatever it was, the closing game of the
game 7
Liberty WNBA finals from last year.
Yeah.
It just felt like they were openly rooting for the Thunder, which was like every foul call. They were like, Are we sure that was a foul? Or are we sure that was a foul? And then every time, it was a 50-50 ball. It's like, oh, are we sure the Wolves didn't foul? And I mean, I do not have any type of victim complex with the Timberwolves whatsoever. It was pretty tough to listen to.
Yeah, well said there. Glad you brought that up, because I was thinking I was crazy, thinking, am I the only guy who's hearing this? Back to the game at hand, again, against a team that's beating teams by an average of 17 points per game from start to finish, start of the season to now, which would be an NBA record. Somebody we knew, you and I talked about before the game, somebody was going to have to step up and kind of add an extra spark if they were even going to be competitive in this game. Let's get into our biggest X factor from tonight.
It's time to reveal who made the biggest under-the-radar impact with today's X Factor.
So who was it, Jack? Who added that extra spark, that extra element, and helped the Wolves kind of stay, blow for blow, step for step with OKC down the stretch, despite, again, so many free throws, so many turnovers, so many times the Wolves shot themselves in the foot?
Yeah, for sure. It was our guy, TJ Shannon, right? And TJ tonight, 18 points, made all 7 of his shots, made 3 huge threes that all came at pretty consequential times. And he was a +4 in his 17 minutes. And I thought that he did everything that the Timberwolves needed him to do on both ends of the floor for the most part. He got blown by a couple of times defensively, but I mean, one thing that I really appreciate about TJ is that the overwhelming majority of his mistakes come from just playing hard, right? And I think that you'll give a guy a couple of blow-bys in a game when he's really just competing his tail off. I mean, felt like the offense was completely different with TJ on the floor. And while there's, a good amount of noise and single game offensive and defensive rating, the Timberwolves had an offensive rating with TJ Shannon on the floor tonight of about, what was it? I think it was 144 in the 17 minutes he played. And it was 86 in the 31 minutes he did not play. And obviously part of that was because he was not on the floor during that 10-minute stretch that we talked about. But he was a big part in helping them climb out of that, right? Came out, had 10 points in 5 minutes. In that second quarter, he was being guarded by Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren, 2 guys that he has no problem blowing by. That happened in the playoffs last year too. That was part of the reason why he played really well, was because he was making his corner threes and he was blown by centers off the dribble, and he was playing really well in transition. And that happened tonight too. He had a monster dunk on Chet Holmgren in the second quarter. Dave Pasch had thought he was taking a nap when that play happened. He was like, "Oh, Shannon throws it down." Like, thanks, man. Would appreciate
thanks,
any
man.
ounce of.
Hey, can you turn it from a 2 excitement to a 6? I don't even need a 9.
Yeah,
dude,
if AJ Mitchell threw it down on Nas, I'd be like, dang, okay, I mean, just objectively, you've got to show some emotion there. But yeah, I just thought, again, I said it the other night, when you have a lower body injury, it doesn't matter if you're a normal person, if you're a professional athlete, it takes a while for you to trust your body. And we saw it with Ant in the first game back against the Knicks. Yeah. He just was not super aggressive. He was trying to get his footing under him. And then the next game out, comes out, plays tremendous. I thought the same thing would happen. TJ, I go back, watch the last show. I said a similar thing. I expect TJ to play a lot better in his second game out. And that's exactly what he did. And I thought that, for him to come out and just be really aggressive at a time when they really needed him to be aggressive, I think, again, is important. And again, makes you kind of think how much of his struggles early on in the season were him thinking too much versus, laboring with a bruised foot. So I think, again, if he can just play decisively like he did tonight, moving forward, I think that's going to be a huge help for the Timberwolves off the bench.
Definitely one of the high notes of tonight. That's for sure. Always easy to say in hindsight too, Jack, but let's get into our biggest second guess of the night as well.
Since hindsight is always 20/20, let's deliver today's second guess.
So in a game that, again, was right there within reach, came down to pretty much the absolute wire the last 3-4 minutes of the game, what's the number one thing you want back right now that you're confident would have shifted this game? Advantage T-Wolves.
Yeah, I want to split it up into a couple of defensive items and then some lineup stuff. I think the Timberwolves just pressed up way too far on AJ Mitchell, the Thunder kind of backup point guard. I think for them, I mean, everything he wants to do is get into the paint and either kick it out or finish. And the fact that they're pressed up so deep on him, seemingly to take away the jump shot, I thought was it was just game plan mistakes for the Wolves. I mean, I know all the work that goes into scouting these guys. Like those were know your personnel mistakes from the Timberwolves players. And it resulted in him being able to kind of run rampant in some of the non-Shea minutes that I think positioned them really well for when Shea came back in the game to have success. And then the other part of it too, sticking with the non-Shea minutes, I thought that Rudy Gobert was up a little bit too far in coverage and made it tough. He got beat 2 or 3 times for lob dunks and finishes inside for Hartenstein and Holmgren. And I know that Rudy wants to be aggressive and largely speaking, Rudy was tremendous defensively tonight. And I don't want to make it seem like this outshadows what he did defensively tonight, because it doesn't. But those were just some issues that I kind of saw that stuck out a little bit when the Wolves were trying to chip away into the lead. And then from the lineups perspective, I hated that they didn't close with Terrence Shannon.
Right.
I thought he gave them so much juice on offense, especially. And I thought the way that, when Ant's getting loaded up on the way that he was, where you just have a second guy ready in the gap, you either need to have Dante. I would love them to have Dante on one end as a guy that can just shoot, be ready to shoot after catching it one pass away. And then also having a guy like TJ who can start running before he catches the ball and get into the paint and then make a decision from there. And so that was kind of a bummer. I also didn't love that they played Mike Conley over Rob Dillingham in the third quarter. I thought Mike really struggled, did not look particularly impactful in his minutes in the first half. And I thought Rob did. I think he got into the paint a decent amount against Oklahoma City. Like we've been saying, he's got some off the dribble juice that I think is really important that nobody besides Ant and TJ really seem to have at this point right now. And, a lot of people say, well, hey, he's got to finish when he gets there. And I'll say, sure, I have no real pushback there, but like I'll live with misses because he's getting into the middle of the paint and softening up the defense. And then for Rob to have 0 assists in his minutes against a defense like Oklahoma City, I think is certainly a positive sign. So, but yeah, again, I think largely speaking, this was a very positive game for the Timberwolves, and I really don't have much to be upset about.
Well said there. Plenty more deep dive, including what we saw from Ant and Julius that we maybe didn't see the past 2 games. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monarch Money. You ever go check your bank account and go, where'd my money go? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment. So easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, not just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending. It's all in one place. You stop just managing your money. Instead, you start building some wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. You're getting 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA. You're getting half off your entire first year. This episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Without a doubt, most fun I have playing daily fantasy. You can win up to 25 times your money this NBA season. And why I love it, so easy to play. All you got to do, you select 2 or more players. You pick more or less on their projected stats, points, rebounds, assists, 3-pointers, you name it, they got it. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA. You're getting a first deposit match up to $100. This episode also brought to us by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you gotta, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. They're changing the game by turning your rent into things you can actually use when you pay rent through Built. You're in flexible points. Those points can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels, airlines, future rent payment, your next Lyft ride. You name it, they got it. Turn your rent into rewards and start making points around your neighborhood. Go to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. Use the link so they know we sent you. Just real quick here, Jack, before we get into what we'll be talking about, a few quick hitters I just want to run by, specifically about Ant and Julius and what you saw to those two tonight. I guess more specifically, kind of the human element stuff, things we're not maybe going to see in the box score tomorrow morning. I know things were not going their way in the first half, but did you like how they kind of battled, kept their head above water in certain other areas of the game, especially when the Wolves, needed them the most? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, neither of them early in the game, they were just settling for jumpers and didn't have a lot of juice offensively. But I thought Ant's backside help at the rim was awesome. I think Ant was only credited with Ant was not credited with a block, but he contested a bunch of shots, made a lot of good, roller tags. I thought switched out on the perimeter. He did a really good job defending, getting in a stance and playing good defense. And he had 8 rebounds. 7 of those were defensive rebounds. Several of them were contested. And then Julius, I loved how physical he was with Chet Holmgren, right? Chet had 12 points on 12 shots. 6 of those came in the threes he had in the fourth quarter. I thought he did a really good job just making Chet feel him and just kind of had him a little bit off kilter and just kind of put Chet out of his comfort zone a little bit, which I thought was great. And then both guys kind of stuck with it, used the energy they created on defense to get it in on offense, right? And I think they were both really important in the Wolves creating and making corner 3-point shots. Again, anytime that you can get up, 12, 13, 14 corner threes is great. Wolves were 6 of 12 tonight. And they were 4 of 7 in the second half against a defense that are going to give those shots up. So, I thought that both of those guys, again, Julius 10 points, 2 of 13 shooting was not his brightest offensive night, but he had 4 stocks and was important and kind of helping take Chet out of the game. So I think, again, we can criticize these guys all day long. Lord knows I've done it the last few days, but I do really commend those guys for bringing the juice on defense. And this game could have been a 25-point loss considering how they played offensively, but they didn't let that happen. So
this is what you'll be talking about.
I feel like you could go a couple different directions after this game. I hope one of them is Terrence Shannon Jr. I hope we're talking about him tomorrow morning as we should. But is that the case? And anything else you think we should be kind of on the forefront of our minds after this one?
Yeah, for sure. I think TJ can just kind of take this bench from being like a middling, struggling bench, even on the nights when Nas is playing well, to a bench that can really extend leads with really high level offense and getting out and pushing the pace. I think trying to pair TJ with Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo as guys who really like to get out and run is going to be important. I think for TJ, the biggest challenge is like, okay, can I do enough defensively where these non-Rudy minutes aren't going to be terrible, right? Like Clark got the non-Rudy minutes right off the bat. He was the 7th man tonight, or the 8th man tonight. But they didn't go back to him in the second half because Oklahoma City wasn't guarding him in the corner, right? So I think TJ kind of ascending into that 8th, 7th guy role above Mike Conley, being a guy that can, I think, give them help on both ends of the floor. It's just going to be about defense for TJ, in my opinion. But he showed what he can do. I mean, instant offense off the bench as a guy that is wired to score was super important. And then on the other end of the spectrum, for me, I think we'll just be talking about the lack of kind of off the dribble juice and creation that the Timberwolves are struggling with right now. I think you saw that once the Wolves kind of got into the paint, if they didn't get all the way to the rim, they really struggled. And the Timberwolves tonight, they were 1 of 15 on shots that they took in the paint that were not at the rim, which is god awful. And then they were 2 of 8 on kind of your standard mid-range shots. They were 3 of 23 on 2-point shots that were not at the rim. And I think they're just going to need guys that can create and score in those types of situations. And I think it's why I think more Timberwolves fans have been playing around in the trade machine than we have in years past. And it's going to be kind of an interesting puzzle for the Wolves to try and solve. The good news is they certainly have the horses defensively to be able to hang with Oklahoma City. I don't think this Wolves team fears the Thunder, nor should they. And no, that's not a shot at the Thunder. They're a great team, but I think, the Wolves are capable of beating them if they play disciplined basketball. And I think whether or not they have the personnel to be able to do that consistently over a series is to be seen. But I mean, hey, this is a team that's been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row.
Bar is raised.
And
Yeah.
Again, I think tonight kind of is why I have not been. Obviously, I've been frustrated with the Wolves the way they've lost the last 2 games, no doubt about it. But it's not like the sky's falling, right? I mean, they started 8-9 last year, so things could be a lot worse.
Good point.
And no, we'll see what happens. But I think this might be a year where the Wolves try to shake it up a little bit in between now and February.
Great stuff, Jack. Free throws, turnovers, some brutal offensive efficiency. That sinks the Wolves tonight in OKC. 113-105. That was the final. 10-8 now on the year. Much love to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Love you guys so much. Like and subscribe. Go follow Jack, too, at JRBorman13. We'll catch you Saturday back at home against Boston. That's a 4 p.m. tip. Until then, thanks for watching. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you next time. Signing out.